Hello and welcome to the Blindseyepodcast, the podcast discussing everything you did and didn't want to know about being blind. My name is Connor, and this week I thought we would talk about how I went blind and why I went blind, because I realized I haven't really spoken about it up until now, and yeah, it would be probably interesting to explain, and it's something that I get asked about a lot. No real need for a disclaimer with this one. This is very much my own story, so we can get rid of that rubbish. Okay, so basically everything for me starts in July of 2002. So I remember the day quite well, and up until this point, I could see 100% fine, no problems whatsoever. I was 12, and the Soccer World Cup was going on in Japan and Korea at the time. And ironically enough, this particular day, my mum had to go to an eye specialist to get her eyes checked. And afterwards, we went to see Bend It Like Beckham because it had been released to coincide with the tournament. And after my mum had gotten her eyes checked, she had these drops in her eyes, so she couldn't drive for a couple of hours. So yeah, we had a couple of hours to waste and went to watch the movie. So, as any 12-year-old boy does when he gets home from watching a movie about soccer, he goes outside and plays soccer. So I went outside, backyard, started playing, had no problems, noticed it was a bit glary because it was late afternoon, so went inside, got a hat, ran back outside, kept playing, and then when I came back inside finally, I looked at the TV, and the TV seemed a little bit off. And it was one of those analog TVs, it's before flat screens were widely available, before HD or smart TVs or anything. So it was like one of those analog TVs where you could mess with the brightness and the contrast and all that kind of stuff. And I could see the TV fine, but I could just tell, to me it looked like somebody had messed with the contrast of the brightness. It was a little bit dull, but I could see absolutely everything fine. I could just tell, hey, that doesn't look like it usually does. And I said it to my mum, and my mum said, no, the TV's fine. Maybe your eyes are taking a bit to adjust because it was so glary outside. So obviously you don't jump to any massive calamity or catastrophe happening with your eyes. You just think, well, that makes sense. So we went on with our lives. And a few weeks later, I noticed that I was having trouble seeing the blackboard in school from the back of the classroom. So I would move up a couple of seats and I would see it again, no issues. And then I guess at that time it was like, oh, okay, something's happening and we should go to the doctor. And so I went to the GP. GP, ironically, well, not ironically, but sadly, kind of thought I was exaggerating. And because she couldn't tell anything was wrong with my eyes, but we went across the road to the optometrist, and the optometrist said that my optic nerve looked a little bit discolored from what it should look at, and he referred us on to somebody else. So that started several months of every test imaginable. So I had MRIs, CT scans, EMGs, I think they're called, where basically they put needles in your muscles and send an electric current through it to see if they'll react the right way. I had a gold contact lens put on my eyes to check them the right way. I had field tests where they basically flash colors in different sections of your eyes to see if you can see them. And yeah, everything in between, lumbar punctures and all that kind of stuff. So I had the works, and they couldn't really figure out what was happening. Basically, all they knew was my optic nerve looked a bit funny. My eye was not seeing everything it should be seeing. And that was it. My blood wasn't saying anything, and my genes weren't saying anything. My DNA wasn't saying anything. Eventually, I ended up in front of a neurologist, so somebody who deals with nerves, specialist who deals with nerves, and he then basically told me, without any kind of hesitation, that I was going to go blind and that there was nothing that could be done about it. And then, as you would, I started crying, at which then point he told me there was no point in me crying because I wasn't going to fix anything, which is a great quality for a doctor to have. So naturally, my mum and I were in bits, and yeah, it was like just that day was completely the day where everything changed in a much more serious kind of way. So as the medical stuff is happening, I'm noticing at school that I'm having to get closer and closer to the front of the classroom in order to see the blackboard. Then it got to the point where I couldn't see the blackboard anymore and I would have to read off books that would be in front of me. And then after a while, the books in front of me weren't good enough, so the text in the books needed to get increased in size so that I could see them. And then it got to the point where even that wasn't enough. And basically, the way my vision deteriorated was from the inside out. So my central vision started to get blurry first, and my peripheral vision, my outside vision around the edges of my eyes was fine. So I started to watch the TV and stuff by looking up so that the bottom of my eye could look straight. And for like, I remember American Pie came out and I was able to watch American Pie with by looking up because I could see straight ahead through the bottom of my eye. So like I got to see that topless shot with Nadia. I'm a 12-year-old boy who doesn't want to see that, but thankfully I got to see that. But yeah, I had to just be right up against the TV looking up so I could try and get that residual vision coming in through the bottom of my eye. What also started to happen was that when I was playing sport, like soccer, I was starting to lose the ball. So if the ball got kicked in the air, I was finding it very hard to see it. If the grass was discoloured, which it often is in Australia, if it dies and the ball is kind of dirty, then I was finding it hard to see the ball. And my teammates were starting to really lose it with me because, a couple of months ago I could see the ball and it wasn't an issue. And now all of a sudden I'm the idiot who can't see the ball, and hey, I kicked it to you, and now the other team has it, and all that kind of stuff. So that was great, as you could imagine. So anyway, I eventually came up in front of a doctor, a specialist at the children's hospital, who was much, I guess, higher and much more used to rare diseases. So I'd been passed along, and he basically told me that they believed I had what was called Leber's hereditary optic neuropathy, so LHON. And basically what that means is the disease was found by somebody called something Leber. It's a hereditary condition, so it gets passed on by your genes and your family or your genetics or whatever. It affects the optic nerve, so that's the optic neuropathy. And yeah, that's basically how it happens. It's something you get passed through your mitochondria, which you only get from your mother. And that's the part of the DNA that it affects. I also came up in front of a genetic counselor, I believe they're called, where they explain to you how it works and how your genes can do things. And basically, the way it was explained to me was that everybody on Earth has a certain amount of DNA that's been passed down through thousands and thousands of generations, and there can be dormant diseases in there. Like some people might be more prone to cancer or heart disease or things like that because of these diseases, and they can get switched on by various means. So in some cases, it's the age you are, so it might be puberty and hormonal changes, which could have been mine. It could be viruses that set it off. It could be certain kinds of trauma. And yeah, there's no basically one size fits all, but that's how it happens. Everybody has a certain amount of DNA that's junk, and for a lot of people, they don't even know it because it never causes a problem, and for others, it will cause a problem at some point in their life. That genetic counselor, also lovely enough, like the other doctor, told me that she wasn't a magical fairy and couldn't wave a wand and give me my sight back when I was upset in front of her, as if that was supposed to make everything better. So yeah, it's nice to see some of these doctors get get hired. I mean, I know they do a hard job, and I know they see a lot of people, but yeah, some of them are probably too desensitized to the feelings of children in front of them, in my own opinion. So anyway, at that point, it was a matter of playing the waiting game and seeing just how bad my vision would get. So with LHON, some people get severe vision impairment, but they live a relatively normal life. Some people get full blindness, but usually that's a smaller percentage of people. In my case, I ended up being the small percent, which is yippee for me. But I end up being the small percent that lose basically everything. But yeah, that's generally not the rule. So I don't know the exact numbers on the disease, but I believe it's something like 1 in 50,000 or 1 in 100,000. It's quite rare, I think, as things go. And I was also told that they couldn't really give me a firm diagnosis because my DNA and my blood work didn't confirm that I had this. The reason they thought I had this was because they couldn't figure out what else it could be, and I had all the symptoms of LHON, and that as far as they knew, there were certain strains of LHON that couldn't be detected and confirmed by DNA testing. So that was the box they put me into. I'm not quite sure either because it was 18 years ago, but I'm fairly sure this was happening maybe around October, November, and my first symptoms were in July. So medically, that's really quick. People don't usually lose their vision that quickly, as far as I'm aware. But yeah, it happened quite rapidly. And I guess when it really started to impact me was when I couldn't see people's faces clearly anymore. I might be able to see the rest of their body, but when I was trying to look at their face, it was blurry. And the day specifically that I remember that, oh, okay, I'm going to have to completely change my life. It wasn't just the reading and the soccer. Obviously, that was a big thing. But when I got off the bus and I was trying to cross the road and I couldn't see the cars properly, and I basically just had to chance it and run across the road. And at this point, I didn't have a cane. Like I wouldn't even be seen with a cane for another 5 years. And I was kind of in the position where my eyes were going bad, but I had moments where it was usable. So it was kind of tricking me. Sometimes I was thinking, oh no, I've got enough, I'm fine. And then I'd find myself in moments where I was like, oh crap, I really don't know what's going on. And anyway, I ran across this road and I couldn't see the gutter on the other side. And I managed to stop like 4 inches before the gutter on the other side. And if I'd hit it, I would have gone flying. And I didn't see it until the last second. And that was kind of when I realized, oh, okay, like I'm actively in danger now. And that was obviously another really big moment. It was also a race to Christmas because that year the PlayStation 2 had come out and my mum had put it on lay-by so that I'd get it at Christmas, but my vision was deteriorating so quickly that it was up in the air whether I would get to Christmas and have enough vision to use it. So I actually believe mum gave me it a few weeks beforehand to see if I could use it, at least for a while. And unfortunately, that just wasn't possible. But yeah, that had kind of been an ongoing race. I mean, it sounds like something so small, but for a 12-year-old, it was pretty big at the time. And yeah, by that Christmas, it stabilized to what it is now, which is essentially nothing except for light perception, and it's stayed that way ever since. So yeah, that was July to December. So yeah, 6 months? Not even. And yeah, that's how it happened. In hindsight, we actually did realize after the fact that I had been having night vision issues for a couple of years before I noticed anything during the day. But when you're that young, you're not really out at night all that often. I was finding it really hard if I'd go outside at nighttime to find the car or things like that. But as soon as there was a light source, I was fine. And I had no issues during the day. I had no issues in any other part of life. So you don't really think, oh, well, it's a bigger issue. You just think maybe your eyes are taking a while to adjust. Everyone's eyes take a while to adjust at night. And that, but, in hindsight, looking back, which is a great thing, that's what was going on. And I suppose the one good thing you can say is that there still would have been nothing I could do. So I suppose that would have been worse if I'd found out, if I had known earlier, there's something I could have done, but there wasn't anything I could have done. So I guess that's a saving grace. So anyway, that's my story. There are some offshoots there that I can go into about school and all that kind of stuff, which I will. But yeah, that's basically my story in a summed up kind of way. So I hope that was interesting and informative or whatever you want to take from it. But yeah, so look, you can get in touch with the show by emailing blindseyepodcast@gmail.com. That's BLINDSEYE podcast@gmail.com. You can find the show on Twitter @BlindsEyePod, and you can find me on Facebook if you search for the Blindseye Podcast. And I will speak to you next week. Cheers.